Hello, welcome to our channel. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're just making sure that the camera is going. We've had a lot of problems with those who want to destroy America, the FBI, the CIA, and there's a lot of the people in those organizations that don't want to destroy America. So there's an internal war going on, and we just happen to be censored by the FBI. And when Trump stops paying the FBI to censor us, well, then we'll stop being censored. But until Trump stops paying them, and he's been paying the FBI now for, well, he set it up to censor us 9 years ago. So he's been paying them to steal our money. Anyway, the feds, this is very important for you to understand. It's 9 September 2025. The feds are to revalue gold, as the U.S. may trade Venezuela for the Ukraine, and we'll explain here in a minute. But first, most important to you is your pocketbook. And of course your health, which we covered with, sorry, they're still spraying us. And as long as Trump sprays us and censors the news, there's nothing we can do except talk about things to help you. So anyway, gold and silver, but right now they're talking about gold will be revalued. I buy from Noble Gold because I know that if I have to send this back to them, they'll give me the full value. You see, you buy a lot of these garbage coins, and you can't turn them in because nobody wants them. Nobody wants a 925 kangaroo or a 999 kangaroo or a dragon. They want reputable silver that's pure silver that you can turn around and sell, and they know it's silver. So I buy from Noble Gold. Gold is currently valued by the federal government at $42.22 an ounce. It's now at $3,600. The feds are talking about revaluing it to $3,300. That may go up to $3,600. Either way, that will leave the United States with an additional $800 billion to spend, which they'll blow through in a couple of months. But what does that mean that the United States gets another $800 billion because of the value of gold? Well, what happens is the banks have taken the U.S. treasuries and they've capitalized them, they've monetized them, and sold off bonds equal to $1,000 in the value. So $1 of U.S. bonds, the hedge funds have made $1,000 in hedge funds. Now, what if the U.S. took that $780 billion and monetized to the tune of 100 to 1, which is what England did when they first came to the colonies. They took a pound of silver, this is almost a pound, and then they issued a pound note based on the value of this in their central banks. And then 5 other banks issued a pound note based on the first pound note that was based on this. Then 5 other banks issued it. So we had 26 pounds based on 1 pound of silver. But they all maintained their value. And that's how the United States colonies were built. Back in the 1860s and 1700s, they were built based on money that was overinflated. So they're going to overinflate this silver, or gold, I'm sorry, we don't have any gold up here. It's all offside, I have that for silver. That's it, sorry folks, not a lot of displays. So they're going to take that and monetize it to the tune of 100 to 1. Roughly $800 billion to the tune of 100 to 1. And that will give them not 800 billion, but 8 trillion, 80 trillion. Now the 80 trillion is enough to pay off the $38 trillion in United States corporate debt and the $35 trillion in Medicare debt. Oh yeah, Medicare's in debt to the tune of about 35 trillion. All they have money to do is treat the illegal aliens. That's why we have to spend $900 a month on Medicare insurance. Because unless we have that insurance, we can't even get an aspirin. I went down to the clinic south of here, about 4 miles, 176th Street. I said, what percentage of your people pay when they come in for medical appointments? They said about half. Medicare is not paying the offices anymore. Medicare is only paying if you're an illegal alien. So Trump has not fixed that. So they're going to monetize the gold which will add roughly $80 trillion to the monetary supply. Now, what happens when you take a monetary supply of, say, 10 trillion and you add 80 trillion to it? We don't know. Nobody's ever done it before. Will we see hyperinflation? Nobody knows. Nobody's been audacious enough to add $80 trillion instantly to the monetary supply. Or maybe they'll make it 800 trillion. Who knows? Or 8,000 trillion. I don't know. 3 years ago, Merrill Lynch said they had 200,000 trillion dollars they were managing. They were one of the big 5 banks, not the biggest, which means the banks are managing 1,000 trillion dollars, close to 2,000 trillion dollars in assets and loans and monetized loans. You see, your home that's worth 300,000 is then monetized 1,000 to 1 by the hedge funds, which brings it from 300,000 to 3 million to 30 million to 300 million. So $300 million of bonds are issued on your $300,000 of debt. Now, if you pay your debt off, those $300 million of bonds become worthless, but they never do go away. They're still out there. So the whole financial system is based on falsehoods, fake, non-reality. So the monopoly buyers, the food buyers, the grocery stores, the retail stores, the food manufacturing, now they're buying the homes, the farmland, the ranch lands, and the dairies because the anti-monopoly laws are not being enforced by President Trump. So what does that mean is they're going to pay the farmers nothing so they can go in and horn in and buy the farms with money that BlackRock creates out of thin air, buy the homes, plow down entire cities. We've seen that starting about 10 years ago where they take a town of 300 homes, buy 250 of them, and plow them down. Burn them up. Destroy them. Put them in the dump. Tear the homes down. But nobody's buying a home right now because lumber prices are crashing. So, and that's an indicative of the fact that nobody's buying nothing. The last couple of days, lumber prices went from $575 to $525. In other words, lumber prices are plummeting. So we now have a monopoly on food buyers, grocery stores, retail stores, and food manufacturers. That's a monopoly is called National Socialism, Sieg Heil. So we now have a Sieg Heil on food buyers, grocery stores, retail stores, and food manufacturers as Trump continues to pay the homeless, the cities and the counties, $10,000 per homeless. And they shut down the grocery stores within the city and they move out like mobs. Grocery store closes, then they move to this gas station and close it. They move up to this gas station and close it. Then they move over here and steal food and close this one. And then right now, they went from just locally from the Fred Meyer to the Mobile. And Walgreens. They shut the Walgreens and the Mobile down. Now they're moving to the Union 76. They're shutting that down. Then they'll move down to a Chevron, and then they'll move down to a Shell. And as long as President Trump authorizes $10,000 per homeless to be given to the cities and the counties, and the owners of the cities and the counties accept it, they'll continue to shut down stores. So the cities are losing grocery stores. You want to visit a third world country? Visit Seattle, visit Portland, visit San Francisco. That's worse than a third world country. That's worse than Santo Domingo. That sucks. Anyway, I used to roam that city. So in 1980, there were 365,000 dairies. Today, there are about 18,000. The same number of cows. It's been consolidated, bought by BlackRock. The American economy has been destroyed, utterly destroyed. So you're going to eat whatever food they serve you. If you don't eat the fake food, will be the Department of War is suing states for not allowing fake food into their countries, into their states. The Department of War is suing Florida and Texas for not allowing fake foods into their states. The Department of War. So you will rent your home, eat what you're given, and shut up. Now, I get a letter from Lucifer Trust. My neighbor saw that letter. He says, "You get a letter from the devil." Yes, I do. I get a letter from the devil. And I listen to the devil's broadcast because God's put me in the devil's camp. Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call him, by any other name, he's the most evil critter on the planet. So, if you hear the word workers of light, spiritual servers, light workers, Ashtar Command, Sanat Kumara is Satan, or out-of-body experiences, that's when the demons lead you around and you do an out-of-body experience through the use of drugs, which is what the Knights Templar try to do. Out-of-body experiences, league up with Satan, which is why they can't bow to the Duke of St. Petersburg, which is why their financial system is collapsing. The whole Western financial system must now collapse because they've ignored Russian passport AA-29. So they must die. So we work with others beyond our own political, religious, and philosophical beliefs to reach higher levels of consciousness together. In other words, Jesus doesn't exist. Financial adherence to ideals so characterized by the Piscean Age. We're now harmonizing differences. Witchcraft is the same as Christianity, is the same as Muslimism, Islam is the same as Hinduism, is the same as Buddhism. And reach up to the heights of the soul, having sought and found the pinnacle of peace and attitude of joy, the glamours of one's own distress. The Maya of the past distorts one's point of view. We cannot stand by our rigid political and our rigid religious beliefs. We must all merge, bring in 350 black Muslims into America. If you hear those words, you know they're coming. The light workers are coming from Lucifer. I'm a worker of light, so you work for Lucifer. Anyway, the geopolitical side of the effects are Russia and the United States have been supporting each other for a long time until neoliberalism, the Masons, the Jewish bankers created the Soviet Union to eliminate God. And when Russia reformed, God was reintroduced into Russia. Now, most of the churches over there are museums. I visited them. Just like we have a museum of church in Washington, D.C., most of the churches in Russia are museums. But here, the churches are where the foreigners bring in other foreigners and collect the $8,000 a month until those foreigners speak English, and then they go out and get their own $8,000 a month and hit the road, Jack. So the churches are bringing in the illegal immigrants, and Trump hasn't stopped the refugee ban. So, Russia and the United States now have stated that God gives you your rights, and the government is there to restrict you so you don't murder people, like that black guy who murdered that Ukrainian beauty queen on the subway. Or the guy I examined a lot of criminal records, and I'll give you two. One guy had raped over 9 children, and every time he went to jail, he got out after 6 months. The next guy had raped 4 children, and he goes to jail for 6 months and gets out. He says, I get out, I create a lot of dirty clothes, we have gay orgies, and then when I'm tired of being out of prison, I go into the hot tub with a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old, 13-year-old, and then they arrest me and I go back to prison and I get to play Dungeons and Dragons and they do my laundry and I get free food. And I mean, I got to talking to these people and they like prison, but sometimes they like their freedom so they can have gay orgies. These are sick people. They need to be put away for life. When I was a kid, they used to castrate them and they never raped again. But the neoliberalism stopped that. So now we have hundreds of thousands of raped children walking around because of neoliberalism, which is the light workers, Satanism. So Russia and the United States state that rights are God-given. China, India, all the Luciferian worshipping countries state that the state gives people the rights. But you can't fart without a right to fart. I'm not kidding. Not joking. So, a long time ago in a land far, far away, President Monroe created the Monroe Doctrine, which says all of North and South America will not be occupied by Europe. Well, European occupation ended in 1898 with the Spanish-American War when the main powder magazine inside the main exploded outward, and everybody claimed it was a Spanish mine, a torpedo, whatever. Somebody went out there with a wooden rod and pushed a mine against the main and sunk it. Well, that couldn't be anything but far from the truth. But the U.S. kicked out most of the Spanish from the South American continent, and they eventually filtered out Europe, England, Spain, Guyana, all those, or not Guyana, all those South American countries they left. And they tried to reoccupy Cuba, and now Russia and China have reoccupied Venezuela and Peru. Well, yesterday Trump was on a call with the Prime Minister of India, Modi, and the President of China, Xi Jinping, who doesn't run China anymore, but he's a figurehead. We've saved his life once when he came to Tacoma. Doesn't even care if I die. Ungrateful pig. And Putin. So he's on the phone with the head of Russia, India, and China, determining who's going to run what sector of the world. And it looks like Russia, China, and India will run the Asian continent. Europe will collapse under its own economic weight as the French government once again collapses, fifth time in a couple of years. But nobody's in charge, so they can't pass a budget. Nobody's buying European bonds, so they can't pay anything in the budget. They're going to have to cut off the refugees. But instead of that, they're going to make money out of thin air. They're going to take the euro, and they're going to do what Germany did in the Weimar Republic, and they're just going to create money out of thin air. And there's going to be hyperinflation, and they're going to keep paying the immigrants more and more money to destroy Europe. Because after all, the workers of light, Macron, Starmer, van der Leyen with everybody, all the leaders of Europe are walking, talking demons according to the Lucifer Trust. The United Nations now is meeting in Geneva, not in New York, because Trump won't issue or recognize Palestinian passports. No nation in the world has recognized Palestine. So they're not a nation. They recognize the country I represented. They stamp my passport. But they won't recognize Palestine. Palestine's being destroyed by Israel because they violated their treaty and they need to be all pushed back into Egypt. And Egypt's not cooperating with the treaty. So more than likely the Egyptian economy will collapse. Because as the U.S. cuts off U.S. aid to these nations, their economy's collapsing. All he has to do now is cut off the refugee pay of $8,000 a month to 100 million people. Half of them live overseas. And the United States will stop supporting Europe, India, and China. It's the way it is. I have a neighbor who did that with a mom. Got her over here once a month, or 1 month of the year, $8,000 a month. Then when she moved here, she got 24/7 health care and $8,000 a month. Never paid a dime in Social Security, never worked a day in her life. Raised a family, did a great thing raising a family. Came here and got $8,000 a month, just right across the street. So what we've got now is we've got a situation where Trump has an opportunity to get all of the European powers and all of the Chinese powers out of North and South America. If you examine 1984, and you examine the original Civilization 4 game, you have Asia, Europe, and the United States, Canada, Australia, and Japan. And you have those three constantly at war with one another. They're fighting wars in Africa, they're fighting wars in Brazil, Argentina, South America. And these great continents, the Asian continent, the European continent, and the North American continent, are constantly one continent is at war with the other. So the North American continent is at war with Europe for 3 years. Then, suddenly, they go in and change all the TV stories and all the newspaper stories, edit them all out, and now we're at war with the Asian continent, and we've always been at peace with the European continent. Except we've got a lot of disabled veterans who remember fighting the European continent. So their records are erased. That's what the guy in 1984 did. He was to take the old newspapers and reprint them with the fake stories. We're almost there. In the meantime, the workers of light want to kill us all by the end of the year, i.e. the nuclear weapon that's being brought into D.C. this week. We'll see if they catch it. My guess is that they have the radiation meters out and they're ready 1.1 miles north and a little bit west of the White House to catch that device. Nothing will be said. Trump will have a complete blackout on it, and you will know nothing about it. Free press has died when Trump started censoring YouTube. It's gone. We have the Trump truth and we have Satan's truth. And the real truth is covered up. That's why I'm censored on Truth Social, because I tell the truth. So Trump censors me on his own channel because I tell the truth. Like, why are you still spraying us with 10,000 tons of chemical waste every day? But you can't tell the truth on Truth Social. You've got to tell the Trump truth. Anyway, hang on, folks. We buy gold and silver to pad what's coming, because if the euro falls, then the dollar will fall, because the U.S. Dollar Corporation, it's a corporation, owns the Euro Corporation. They're intricately tied together. So hang on, folks. It could be a very interesting month. Oh, October may even be more interesting, as Europe begins drafting even women for the war that they're talking about in March. God bless. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.